I'm Fara Sax. Welcome to the Community Voice. This show on Friday highlights members of the Aventura Marketing Council Chamber of Commerce. And today I am joined by Eisinger Law, Carolina Sheir, who is an attorney and partner with the law firm. She joins us from her office in Hollywood. Ta-da! There she is. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for taking the time. And a little bit of background about you. You specialize in real estate law, construction litigation, and development representation. And your firm represents 600 Florida homeowner and condo associations, if I'm correct?
Correct. A large portion of my practice is association representation, in addition to the areas that you mentioned. So we represent condominiums, homeowners associations, and co-ops, and we also have a timeshare project that we're working with.
Wow. So tell me, are those the only areas that you focus in on? Does the law firm have other opportunities for outreach?
So we are a full-service real estate firm. We have the transactional real estate practice, closings, both residential, commercial, smaller deals, very large deals. And then we offer a representation in the association setting, and it's full house, anything from the collections to litigation, general counsel, document review. I do a lot of the construction related matters that affect associations, particularly in light of recent events, but it has been something that I have been focusing on for many, many years. I help associations navigate whether it's a 40-year recertification, whether it's a developer construction defect claim, or just general recurring maintenance and structural issues that come up for associations.
And how long have you been with the firm?
I've been here almost 3 years, but I could be wrong with that. So it just
time just goes, right?
Time just goes. Yes.
Do you represent other clients out of South Florida, or is it basically primarily South Florida is your reach?
So we represent clients in Florida, throughout the state of Florida. We have our main office here in Hollywood. We also have a satellite office in Gainesville. But our clients come from all parts of the world. I personally, I'm fluent in Spanish. I also have a second law degree from the University of Barcelona. So I do have a lot of clients from South America, several European clients as well that we assist. So to say, do you represent outside of Florida? No, everything is related to matters in Florida. We're licensed to practice in Florida. However, because Florida is such a melting pot and so diverse, most of our clientele happens to be, or not most, but a large chunk of our clientele is international as well.
And as we move forward in our discussion, we're going to be talking about Surfside and just taking a moment for myself and community newspapers. We just want to send our heartfelt condolences and support and thank you to all the first responders in the community. So thank you. And moving on, what are you telling your clients and what are they most concerned about with these homeowners associations and condo associations?
So every building, and it's important to understand, every building is unique. Every association is unique. We don't know for sure what happened at Surfside, and I don't focus on that necessarily. What I focus is on the individual needs of every building and every association. What I always advocate before this happened is to be proactive. You don't wait till your 40 year to take care of the repairs that are needed for the 40 year. You proactively address repairs and maintenance issues as they come. I advocate for reserves, and I can explain all that, but the way you look at it is it's a piggy bank. It's a rainy day fund. I advocate for that so that when the time comes to make these repairs, you have the money on hand and that's not an issue anymore. So the big concern amongst our communities is my building safe? What do I need to do? What can we do? What are we not allowed to do? Obviously, I cannot attest to whether or not a building is safe. So the number one recommendation is to avail yourself of professional assistance. Hire an architect, hire an engineer, have them inspect your property and provide you a report of the condition of the property. Not just if your property is old. If your property is a younger property, you should be doing that too. You should have a good grip of what the condition of your property is and make sure that you address all maintenance issues.
Because I'm sure you're getting a lot of it. We're playing Monday morning quarterback now that we have to just figure out what's going on as we move forward, associations and HOAs. But what is a condo supposed to do if they're noticing that there's building structural integrity, making sure that everything is going as planned, if it's safe? Because I'm sure you're getting inundated with that. Am I safe? Is my community safe in lieu of this? Because we've gotten 2 or 3 other buildings that have been evacuated at this point too, just in the South Florida area. Is it because of the salt? Is it because of the rain? Is it because of this, that, and the other? So, what would be the next step forward for these condominiums and associations?
My recommendation is to immediately contact an engineering firm or architectural firm and have that company, that professional, because remember, our boards, they're lay people for the most part. They're volunteers. They do have fiduciary obligations to manage, maintain, and operate the association and the condominium property. And the way that you uphold your fiduciary obligations, in essence, and the best way to do it is to avail yourself of the professionals. If you have a concern as to the condition of your property, the very first step that you must take is contact a professional, have them come out and inspect the conditions that you are concerned about, and let a professional give you guidance as to what needs to be done to address those concerns.
I know you don't have all of the background, but didn't that happen in the Chaplain Tower? Didn't they have concern? Wasn't there special assessments out?
So again, I don't comment on the specifics of Surfside because I was not involved in that project, and I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback something without the information. What I focus on for all my associations is the individual needs of our associations. So any association that goes out gets a report, and I can walk you through the 48-year inspection. I can walk you through the difficulties that many of our associations face.
Why don't you give me a couple of examples, so that our audience understands what they're up against?
So there's a lot of components. Okay, there's a technical legal component that you have to address. These repairs are extremely expensive. Okay, they're also very inconvenient to your membership, but more so they're expensive. Associations have to gather the funds in order to be able to pay some of these repairs. These repairs could be in the millions of dollars, depending on your type of building. It could be $100,000. It just depends on the size of your building and the nature of the repairs that are required. In order to pay for this, you're either going to have adequate reserves, which many associations do not have, or you're going to have to specially assess. From a technical perspective, there are some instances with some associations where you cannot specially assess unless you have a membership vote and you meet a threshold approval of the membership. In some other cases, the board may be able to specially assess, but one, you're not a very popular board, and you may get voted out if you adopt a special assessment. Two, you have to take into consideration that many of these buildings, the individuals are on fixed incomes, and a special assessment, even if it's, a couple $100 more a month, is very taxing on some of the residents. So that makes it a very unpopular situation. Another difficulty that we have, especially right now, is you go through the inspection, the logistics, the hiring the contractors. South Florida doesn't necessarily have the best reputation for contractors, unfortunately, out there. So you have a lot of those issues. You have a lot of budgeting issues that you have to deal with. Membership traditionally does not want to pay for these expenses. And these are not expenses that you can necessarily see and value. It's not you're adding new gym equipment or you're adding something pretty to the lobby.
So it's invisible, really an invisible.
Well, they're visible because they are ugly repairs. I mean, some of these buildings have to be, they install swing stages, they destroy the balconies, you block off access to unit owners from using their balconies. It's an inconvenience to owners. Nobody likes this, but it has to be done. So I think if we are going to learn anything from this without specifically commenting on Surfside, is that no matter what it is, no matter how inconvenient or how expensive, it needs to be done. And we can't fight that. We have to try to get it done.
Absolutely. And you've addressed this a couple of times. You've mentioned the 40-year certification, which is a very interesting history because it began in 1974 when the DEA building in Miami collapsed and killed a couple of dozen people. And the engineer at that time started this recertification of 40 years and then 10 years after that 40-year opportunity that it need to be reinspected. So what does this process entail and how do the board of directors prepare for it?
So the way it generally works is and it's really in force and effect in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. Okay, other municipalities or counties may have different requirements, but the concept of the 40-year certification is really germane to Miami-Dade and Broward. Typically, the counties will go ahead and issue a list at some point of those buildings that are going to turn 40 years old. Okay, and they'll issue that list and then they'll spread it to the local municipalities. And then the local municipalities will send out a notice from their building officials saying, you're here notified that you have to recertify your building. Mm-hmm. Historically, a lot of buildings took absolutely no action until they received that notice. By the time you receive that notice, you're behind the ball, in my opinion. You should have already been doing things proactively so that by the time you get that notice, or even beforehand, you know that your building is in the condition that you can just pass that certification.
So just a quick jump in. So how many condos are there in the Miami-Dade and Broward communities that are reaching this 40-year certification or beyond, like you said, and are not doing anything? That, like you said, really behind the ball.
Many could be because the certification process, what the certification process involves is hiring a licensed architect or engineer to go in and assess the condition of your building envelope, to determine what the condition of your stucco is, what the condition of your concrete is. There's an electrical component that has to be addressed. It's an overall assessment of the structural integrity of the building. It's not there are some guidelines that are posted actually very on the Miami-Dade building officials website, and there is a posted guideline that kind of explains what the inspection entails to give you a little bit more of an idea. But they don't go in and destroy your building and then say, okay, let's put it back together. It's really a visual inspection with limited destructive testing. They take a look at to determine whether the building is safe for continued use. There's a terminology that the engineers utilize in connection with the 40-year certification. The engineer or architect will go in, will draw up that report. If that report notes any deficiencies, those deficiencies then have to be permitted and corrected by a licensed general contractor to the satisfaction of the engineer and the city before that recertification will be obtained. So this isn't a very quick process for some of these buildings. We have high rises with 300, 400, 500 units that have to be addressed. This could be a multi-year project for some of these associations. Not only that, but it's a multi-million-dollar project for many of these associations.
it's mind-boggling as we sit and move through this.
We have some associations that started their 40-year project and they're now approaching their 50-year. And they're not done with the 40-year because of the magnitude of the work that needs to be done.
So let's back it up a little bit. So what types of proactive measures should a board take to safeguard its building, its structure, and maybe offset any potential liabilities?
Well, I think that the buildings should be inspected on a more regular basis. Coastal buildings, high rises, generally have their repaint, where they repaint the exterior of the building every 7 to 10 years, some sooner than that. But that's a good time for an association to go in and also maybe have an engineer come out and do a little bit more in-depth inspection of the condition. Take a look at the balconies, take a look at the railings, take a look at some of the structural components of the building.
Is there any emergency plans in place now for this to happen? As even if it's not the 40-year, but as they're doing their facelift of their uplift of their beauty of their condominiums,
So
are they doing it more?
Not necessarily, but from an engineer's perspective, and I'm not a licensed engineer. If an engineer is out on the property and notices a condition that needs to be addressed, I believe that they have an obligation to report that, and then that would trigger remedying the situation. So there are some buildings that do show concrete spalling, rusted rebar, signs of deterioration, and they're nowhere near their 40-year building recertification. It's very common. We live in South Florida. It's a very aggressive environment. So if you're noticing signs, and what I'm told is that these structures, these buildings, when they show signs to give you a heads up that something needs to be investigated. So it's almost like they're speaking to you. They're telling you, hey, look at me, pay attention to me.
So we've just got to be more vigilant and using our eyes and ears to watch this if in an event that we're living in a condo situation.
Right, and not every crack means something that needs to have immediate attention. This is where our boards need to avail themselves of an engineer or an architect or a contractor to come out, inspect the condition of the property on a more regular basis, in a proactive basis, and go ahead and address those issues as they pop up.
Got it.
The other component for being proactive is budgetary. Most of these associations delay and defer these repairs because of money, because it's so expensive.
So this is like the emergency plan that I was alluding to earlier.
So the only thing
the proper budgeting for this to happen.
Associations, it's very costly to maintain these buildings. The statute provides that every single year, a board of directors adopts a budget and they are required to fully fund reserves. What happens in many of these associations is that the membership comes in and takes a vote to waive reserves so that their monthly obligations are lessened. What happens if you don't have reserves? You have a major repair. You have to replace your roof. You have to redo the paint. You don't have the money, and that results in you having to specially assess. And people just want to defer because it's going to be a costly. But the more you defer, the more costly it becomes, the more difficult it becomes.
And what are some of the most important statutory changes which recently took effect regarding condo residents that we should be aware of?
So the statutory changes tend to be more reactive than proactive per se. So nothing, I do not recall anything in the condo statute that specifically addresses what we're dealing with as a result of the Surfside tragedy. However, there were some other statutory changes, notably one of the changes in the collection practices, particularly for condominium associations, regarding the time period for filing claims of lien, and then foreclosing, it was now increased to 45 days. But in addition, there's one more notification requirement that now has to come out from the association prior to a case being sent to an attorney. So prior to a matter being referred to a collection attorney, the association now has to send a letter by a proper method following the statutory form, notifying unit owners that their unit is delinquent in their payment obligations. There were some amendments regarding the official records that were notable, but this was something that one of the bigger changes that I saw had to do with the collection. Of course, as I said, the legislator is reactive, not proactive. So a lot of the changes this year involved emergency procedures in response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
So you're saying in the wake of Surfside and maybe subsequent evacuations of condos, are you seeing that's going to be addressed during the legislative sessions? Maybe deeming them unsafe?
I believe that a task force is already in the process of being assembled. And they are going to be looking at various aspects of the statute. And basically the governance of condominiums to see what can be done to proactively, well, now it's reactive, but proactive to avoid a future incident to address it. So for example, some of my personal ideas would be to make it a lot harder to waive reserves or not provide the option of waiving reserves. Another idea that I have is many of these associations who require membership approval either to pass a special assessment or to obtain financing for this special assessment. Maybe we can statutorily regulate that so that when they are assessments that specifically have to do with these structural components, there won't be a vote that's necessary. However, all that I'm saying has its pros and its cons.
Absolutely.
Because at the same time, something like this is going to deeply affect the pockets of the unit owners and the ability of these unit owners.
Absolutely. That was my next question is there a cap for special assessments?
It's very much in the it's document specific. Okay, this is not statutory. Some buildings have no cap. Some buildings special assessments are imposed by the board, and there's no checks and balances in essence. I mean, the only check and balance that happens is if you're an unpopular board, you get voted out or you get recalled. Other buildings have caps. I have some buildings that will have a cap at $50,000, meaning that you cannot specially assess in excess of $50,000 without getting a membership vote. That membership vote could be a majority of the owners. It could be 2/3 of the owners. I mean, it makes it very difficult to specially assess for things of this nature. Although there are some exceptions. Keep in mind, there are some exceptions for necessary expenditures. Same thing with financing. It's much easier to finance these projects because then you can spread the hit to the owners over a long period of time instead of hitting them up with a very large special assessment to get the work done. Those are things that can be done. But some of these will have negative impact on homeowners' ability to pay for these, and in the end, on possibly the value of this real estate, because people are not going to be able to afford living in these condominiums if their maintenance is so expensive. So
it's a catch-22. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Absolutely.
So we'll leave it at that. But let's pivot a little bit. We just had Elsa come in, out, and was like, thank God it left. With the hurricane season upon us, what are the top of mind things and recommendations for anyone living in a condo or a homeowner association place of residence?
So every year we have hurricane preparedness. Whether you're an individual homeowner in a standalone home or you're a condominium community. Your board of directors should be working with management to make sure that their emergency plans are in place. Not only regarding, God forbid you have to evacuate the building, You should have all your emergency contacts in place. Everyone should be, I have a lot of associations that undergo emergency training and training on the generators and starting up some of the systems and the components. So we don't only leave that up to the maintenance personnel to know how to do, but some of our board members actually get trained on how to go in and start the generator if need be. There's, from a budget perspective, many of our associations seek an emergency line of credit. It's just there if you need it. God forbid you suffer structural damages, you suffer damage from the hurricane, and you need to pay your insurance deductible. That emergency line of credit is right there available to you for that, and it helps offset the hit. All unit owners should be reminded of what the emergency protocols are, where people can go if they need a safe, a lot of people tend to go into the stairwells or things of that nature for safe rooms, that they should be removing all of their belongings from the balconies because those become projectiles. And really it's being prepared, just like the government, the media, they always put out preparedness guidelines. Every association should have a preparedness guideline. If your association has contractors in place, I always suggest that prior to hurricane season, you review what the hurricane policies are of each contractor. Your landscaper, how quickly is your landscaper coming out to clear debris? Is there going to be an additional charge to your association for the debris?
Should the condo associations do this yearly, let's say, to see if something has changed and
Absolutely.
to update it, to learn how to even start a generator? I mean, things happen. It's like when you go on a cruise ship, they have like an emergency plan where you have to go to the top and you have your life preserver. So I guess that's what needs to be done into the condominiums and apartments.
Absolutely. It's people's homes, but they're very large buildings and they need to be operated. So absolutely, I would strongly recommend that. The other thing is always avail yourself of your professionals. Call your insurance agent. Double check on your policy. Make sure that your policies are in place and that they provide adequate coverage for any type of emergency. Ask them what they recommend you should have in place as far as hurricane preparedness. Those are all different things that can be done to assist in preparing for the hurricane season. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We're in Florida, so.
Absolutely. And another wonderful thing that Eisinger Law does is there's educational webinars that you all host. So tell me a little bit what you do in the time that we have left. We have a couple of minutes left.
So we're very proactive on education. As you can tell, we love sharing different tips and guidelines. We publish a lot, but the webinar came out as a result or a byproduct of COVID. Before, we used to have live seminars. We do board certifications for board members, which is a statutory requirement of all board members to either certify that they are going to uphold their governing documents, or they can also attend a division-approved course. But we also do topical matters. We have some on construction defect concerns. We have several coming up on 40-year certification maintenance considerations. We've even had seminars about emotional support animals, and that is a very hot topic for many of these condominiums that have pet restrictions and individuals who require an exception to those restrictions to maintain an emotional support animal. So what we
I know we didn't get to that, but I maybe next time you can come back again and we can talk about that.
Oh, sure. It's a very hot topic. It's a difficult topic to talk about, but I'd be happy to.
Absolutely. And if someone has needs and wants to reach out to you or any of your other partners, how would our audience reach out to Eisinger Law?
So they can go ahead and go on our website. It's www.eisingerlaw.com. They can call our office, 954-894-8000. And on our website, you can email us directly or set up a consultation, and we'd be happy to assist.
I really appreciate your time. I just want to put a little note in for anyone that wants to donate to Surfside. It's Surfside Funds, surfside.org, to do any monetary or gift items. And I want to thank you, Carolina Sheir, for joining us today for the Community Voice to talk about things that are difficult. And thank you for your time and your attention with us today on the Community Voice. Thank you, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.